Welcome to Gentle's World Agency, where we bring to you the latest updates around the world. On this report, Russians resist Putin's call for mobilization. Hundreds are detained. As Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned Russians that their president was willfully sending citizens to their death, Russian police dispersed peaceful protests against President Vladimir Putin's military mobilization order, arresting hundreds nationwide, including several children. Before we continue with this report, please subscribe to this channel and click on the notification bell to be notified when next we drop a new video.
Russians resist Putin's call for mobilization, hundreds are detained. As Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned Russians that their president was willfully sending citizens to their death, Russian police dispersed peaceful protests against President Vladimir Putin's military mobilization order, arresting hundreds nationwide, including several children. Police detained nearly 750 people, including more than 370 in the capital Moscow and some 150 in St. Petersburg, according to OVD Info, an independent website that monitors political arrests in Russia. Some of the arrested individuals were minors, OVD Info said on Saturday. Protests erupted within hours on Wednesday after Putin announced a call-up of 300,000 army reservists in a move to beef up his forces fighting in Ukraine, after the Russian military suffered battlefield setbacks. A Russian general who handled supplies at the Ukraine front lines was replaced on Saturday. Police deployed in cities where protests were scheduled by opposition group Vesna and supporters of jailed opposition leader Alexei Navalny, quickly arresting demonstrators before they could hold protests. The Ukrainian president in his late-night address called on Moscow's forces to surrender, saying they would be treated in a civilized manner. "No one will know the circumstances of your surrender." The comments came just hours after Russia passed a law making voluntary surrender and desertion a crime punishable by 10 years of imprisonment. A separate law, also signed on Saturday, facilitated Russian citizenship for foreigners who enlist in the Russian army for at least a year, bypassing the normal requirement for 5 years of residency in the country. Russia officially counts millions of former conscripts as reservists, most of the male population of fighting age, and the partial mobilization gave no criteria for who would be called up. Reports have surfaced of men with no military experience or past draft age receiving call-up papers, adding to the outrage that has revived anti-war demonstrations. Criticism also appeared to be spreading among Putin's supporters. The head of the Russian President's Human Rights Commission, Valery Fadayev, called on Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu to put a halt to the brutal manner with which many draft boards were proceeding. The editor-in-chief of pro-Kremlin Russian television RT also expressed anger at the new recruitments. "They're infuriating people, as if on purpose, as if out of spite. As if they'd been sent by Kiev," she said. In another rare sign of turmoil, the Defense Ministry said the Deputy Minister in charge of logistics, 4-star General Dmitry Bulgakov, had been replaced for transfer to another role, giving no additional details. As long queues of men trying to leave the country formed at Russia's borders, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov delivered a fiery speech at the UN General Assembly speech, accusing Western nations of seeking to destroy the nation. "The official Russophobia in the West is unprecedented. Now the scope is grotesque," Lavrov said. "They are not shying away from declaring the intent to inflict not only military defeat on our country, but also to destroy and fracture Russia." Meanwhile, Russia staged its second day of the so-called referendums in 4 occupied regions of Ukraine, and appears set to formally annex a swathe of the territory next week. Kiev and the West have denounced the votes as a sham, and said outcomes in favor of annexation are predetermined. Putin this week warned that Moscow would use all means to protect its territory, which former Russian leader Dmitry Medvedev said on social media could include the use of strategic nuclear weapons. The annexation raises concerns that Russia could then view any military move on the occupied regions as an attack on its own territory. Australia must stand with Ukraine over the long term. Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles says Australia needs to stand with Ukraine over the long term. "We need to see this as having all the potential for it to be a protracted conflict," he told Gentle's agency. "And our objective here has to be enabling Ukraine to ultimately end this conflict on its own terms, for it to be the author of the resolution of the end of the conflict." Ukraine has recently lobbied Australia for more military support, including more Bushmaster vehicles, following Russian President Vladimir Putin ordering a partial mobilization and warning he is not bluffing about the use of nuclear weapons. Thanks for staying with us. Please support us with your likes, comments, and also share this video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and to click on the notification bell to be notified when next we drop a new video. Stay tuned. See you in the next